Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Defining Wellness author series, sponsored by You Define Wellness. I'm Denise O'Malley and the founder of You Define Wellness. And what I wanted to do with this author series is introduce you to some of the You Define Wellness network providers who have either authored a book or collaborated with a book and on health and wellness. And today it's my pleasure to introduce you to my friend Diana Calvo with Diana Calvo Coaching. Diana, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Denise.
So I'm really looking forward to this. The book that you collaborated with, so you have a chapter in the book, is called Expect Miracles. 10 Beautiful Souls Share Stories of Hope, Inspiration, and Transformation. And authored by Sue, is it Dumais?
Dumais.
Dumais. Oh, hey, I butchered that. Sorry, Sue. I really apologize. I should have clarified that before we went into the live recording. So can you tell me a little bit about the book?
Yes, I would love to tell you about the book. So I think about the book sort of from two different perspectives. And so one of those is the specific chapter that I wrote would be one way. And then the other way I think about the book is as a collection of stories.
Okay.
So in terms of my own chapter, it's really a look at, it's a deep look at this time in my life where I was going through a pretty significant shift.
Okay.
And the chapter itself takes a look at what I learned about myself and about my life during this period of transition. So that's the chapter that I wrote. And then more broadly, the book as a collection of stories, I like to think of it as a really interesting look at what spiritual growth and spiritual awakening looks like in the lives of everyday people.
That's awesome. I just love that subtitle of Stories of Hope, Inspiration, and Transformation. So what specifically is your chapter about? Can you share a little bit about your story?
I sure can. I suffered from some childhood abuse, and for the first 41 years of my life was running away from the pain that was associated with that abuse. The shift that took place in my life was when I realized that the only way I was going to free myself was to actually face the painful emotions associated with what had happened.
That had to have been really hard.
It was, and I only did it because I was on my knees.
Okay. The bottom of the barrel, where else are you going to go? Right.
Right. But, looking back on it now, such a blessing in disguise, because really that shift changed my life profoundly. And I like to think of, before that shift, I was living the majority of my life in a deep state of suffering. And it was just sprinkled with these moments of peace. And the peace that came was really because I was doing something to numb myself out. And for me, it was mostly eating, but also drinking.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went through this shift, which I like to think of as a radical first phase of awakening. Mm-hmm. And after the shift, my life is I'm mostly in a state of feeling comfortable. Mm-hmm. And then it's sprinkled with these upsets. And I have tools now to deal with those upsets when they arise. Mm-hmm. But it's such a significantly different way of living life. And I'm just so inspired to be able to share that with other people, and especially for those that might be in a deep state of suffering, to hopefully provide some hope that things can be different.
Wow. So how did it come about that you have provided a chapter in this book?
Yes. Well, I was in the midst of the sort of the beginning stages of my healing journey. And I was working with a variety of different healers to help me. along the way. And Sue Dumais, who led this collaborative book project, was one of the healers that I was working with. And she felt inspired to follow the call in her heart to do this collaborative book project and have others get involved. And so she sent out an invitation for people, who might be interested. And I felt very clearly called in my own heart, despite my fear, to be part of it. And that was really what started that whole process.
Was it intimidating to you to do this?
I don't know if it was intimidating, but I had a lot of resistance.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of resistance to the biggest thing I had resistance to was seeing the positive aspects of my life journey and what had happened. I was still sort of in the midst of feeling a lot of resentment about what had happened and still learning the lessons and thinking about how, wishing things could have been different. And this writing the chapter really challenged me to look for the positives and to look for the lessons and to find a way to focus on that part of the story as well.
I've learned in my life that I learn so much more when I am either trying to tell my story or teaching others what the lessons I've learned, and then those lessons grow and they suddenly start making a little bit more sense. Did you find that was true with you?
I did find that to be true. And, it's interesting because this morning I just went back and took a quick reread of the chapter, and it was interesting and comforting to still be in this place of living the lessons that I shared in the chapter. Those are still things that are very present in my life and that I still believe in and still practice today. And it's really fun to see that.
So how long ago did this book come out?
It came out about a year and a half ago. Okay. Yeah, it was the end of 2017.
Yeah. And I saw something that 100% of the royalties of this book go to support Kenya foundations that Sue supports as well. So I think that's absolutely fantastic. So tell me what response you've received for putting your story out there.
Yes. So I have had a couple, very few people who I'm close to who have reached out to me to talk about the book. And when I say few, I mean two.
Okay.
Two people that have wanted to talk to me about what I wrote. And beyond that, I don't know. I trust that the book is out there in the world doing what it's meant to do and touching the lives of people it's meant to touch. I think one of the biggest aspects of this book that was healing for me was to realize how afraid I was of telling people my story, and then to actually tell it and have it be public and to have this experience of peace. There was no huge all our mind can come up with, and my mind came up with all these terrible things that could happen and backlash. And
right.
None of that happened. It was very peaceful.
Oh, that's a fantastic thing to hear. So by writing it and sharing it the world, you had more healing that went on with you.
I certainly did. And that was really my primary motivation for writing it. It was my healing first and foremost.
So I'm interested, because I know your story is really personal. The two people who reached out to you, was it a positive interaction, or they just wanted to ask questions of you, or what was going on?
Yeah, very positive. And I would say in both cases, conversations that helped make the relationship closer.
Sounds like conversations that needed to happen.
Yeah, and I think that it speaks to the possibility in relationship when we're willing to be vulnerable.
Uh-huh.
And we can spend, and I certainly did. I spent my whole life trying to protect myself and keep the walls up. And this book was an act of taking the walls down and showing myself and being vulnerable. And it really does change the nature of relationships, and it opens up the possibility of deeper connection, which I think is what we're all ultimately looking for.
So your story is the catalyst for your career as well. Can you talk a little bit about how the pain and the experiences that you went through led you into the path of being a coach and a registered psychotherapist, if I remember right,
Mm-hmm.
and going on that journey?
Yes. Mm. So before I went through this shift, or what I like to call this radical first phase of awakening, I was running from these painful feelings inside. And if you looked at my life from the outside, I appeared to be very successful. So I had the house, the marriage, the successful career, the vacations, and all of that stuff. But inside was a very different story. And I was not living my life in alignment with my true self because, to be honest with you, I was completely disconnected from my true self.
Yeah.
And this caused a great deal of suffering. After I went through this shift, I started to be able to connect with my true self again and to be able to get into alignment. And part of living my authentic life and living my purpose also included a pretty dramatic shift in careers. And so I ended up leaving the corporate world and entering into this path that involves some healing work with others. And I'm doing coaching right now, and I'm a registered psychotherapist, and I feel incredibly passionate about playing whatever role I'm meant to play in the healing journey of others as they're on their path and they're finding their way in life. It's an incredible feeling for me to be able to support people as they do that. And I feel I have a deep empathy for it because of my own personal experience.
You said something that was, I think, really important to emphasize, and that you were from the outside living the perfect life. You had the marriage, you had the job, you had the vacations, you had, what everybody would say is, she's got it. And envious of some people. And yet on the inside, we don't know what's going on the inside of anyone out there. And I think that to me was what I was getting from just what I learned about this book, is that we all have garbage going on in our lives, but there's a way through it and to prosper through it. And I don't mean that in the financial sense, but hey, if that happens, that's great. But to prosper in our lives and come through it. And so I think the book was appropriately titled, to give Sue great credit for that, the Expect Miracles and the Hope, the Inspiration, and the Transformation. And it sounds as though this book gives that hope, and to those who are looking for something outside of themselves. So kudos to you for doing that. And it's an incredible, what is the word that I'm trying to think of? Come on, Denise. It's an incredible lifeline, I think, for a lot of people out there. And I hope that this book has great success. I don't know how well it's doing, but I know it's out there and it's available. Where can somebody purchase the book?
It's available on Amazon.com.
Okay, so it's easy enough to get. Is it also downloadable? Do you know?
It's not downloadable.
Okay. So a hard copy book. I love hard copy books. I'm one of those that still wants to hold it and use the highlighter and dog ear the pages and all of that amazing things. So what more would you like to say about this book? So when you knew that you were going to be on this call with me, you probably had some preconceived ideas of the messages that you wanted to put out there. So what more would you like to add?
Well, following up on your last comment about the stories as a lifeline, I think that is one of the really beautiful aspects of the book. And I wanted to share that, I think that sometimes in popular culture, we have these ideas about what it means to walk a spiritual path or be a spiritual person, or, what does it even mean to experience spirituality? And there are people out there like Eckhart Tolle and Adyashanti and Osho. There's a very small percentage of the population that perhaps had these instantaneous awakenings. But then there's also the rest of us. And
right.
What does it mean to pursue some kind of spiritual growth in one's life? And I love the book as a very tangible set of examples of what that looks like for 10 different regular people. And, so I remember when I started on my own path towards spirituality, I kept hearing people say, but you got to do the inner work. And I remember saying, what is the inner work? What is inner work? What does that even mean?
Yes, exactly.
And this book gives just a really beautiful set of examples of what inner work looks like for 10 different people. And I also think that it's very, it's based in reality. It's the in and out, day-to-day stuff that one does to grow spiritually, and the difficulty and the challenge and the realness of it. It's so I like that aspect of the book a lot.
How are you using it in your everyday life? Is it something that you are out there talking to your clients about?
The book comes up when the book comes up. I don't have a lot of specific intention around using the book in any particular way, but I pay attention when the opportunity arises to use it in a way that's guided. For example, like this conversation. But I really enjoy, reflecting on the experience, remembering everything that I learned about myself when I was willing to go public with my story, and remembering that spirituality is available to everybody.
It's a beautiful message. Thank you for sharing that. So I am going to reshare this book, and I'm also going to share with you Diana's contact information. And I encourage anyone who is watching this video, first of all, go get the book. It's on Amazon.com. Read it. Read not just Diana's story, but read all the other 9 stories that are encapsulated in this wonderful book. I know I'm going to be getting it myself. And if you're feeling so inclined, reach out to Diana and see if she's someone that you can work with as a coach for yourself. And because she's been through the journey, she can help you navigate through the journey as well. And and suddenly I have a frog in my throat. Sorry about that. Any last words that you want to add to this?
I just want to say thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be able to share my journey and to talk about the book, and I appreciate being here. So thank you.
You're welcome. I honor the work that you did to get you to the point of writing this chapter and being a part of this, answering the call to be a part of this book, that I think that it has a fantastic, I'm going to go back to it again, lifeline for those who are absolutely needing it. So for those of you who are watching, thank you very much. We appreciate you being on here. please go to our YouTube channel. Just go to youtube.com, put You Define Wellness into the search box, and you will find our channel. And we have dozens and dozens and dozens of videos on there from health and wellness professionals like Diana, who we also have on at least one other video on our library, and use it as a resource to help guide you as you're walking on your path to wellness. And with that being said, thank you very much again for joining us, and we hope to see you on another video.